doing this just off the top of my head. This is not scripted, but I see so much printed material and online tuition for guitar that describe things incorrectly, give chords the wrong names. I just want to clear it all up for you. There's an Al Pacino film called The Scent of a Woman. There's a line in it, he says, listen up, I'm giving you pearls. So these are pearls, so treasure these. Right, let's look at what chords do. The function of a chord is to support with a harmony a tune. A chord sequence or chord progression is a movement away from the home key. Say in this instance we'll pick the home key will be G, and you'll move through a sequence of chords. If it's a folk song it'll be a jazz song, it might be something more convoluted. But the point is chords move from one point to another. Now the most important point is that the last but one chord in a folk song, the D7, that chord has got a certain quality. All chords are formed with their major chords. That's a major chord. A minor chord, got a slightly different feel to it. And the difference between major and minor is just simply the distance from the first note of the scale to the third note of the scale. So in a G chord, the distance from the first note to B, that's a big gap, isn't it? That's 4 frets. So you call that a major jump. If it was smaller, to 3 frets, it would be a minor jump. Think major disaster, minor calamity. Major big, minor small. So that's a major third, G chord. That's a minor third, G minor. Okay, and that's the only difference. You haven't got to worry about anything else. Now this chord here, D7, is called D7 because as well as having the principal components of any chord, the first, the third and the fifth, it's also got the 7th. And in this case it is not the ordinary 7th note of the scale, but that's the 7th note of the major scale, but it's taken back half a step or 1 fret, and that makes it what we call a dominant chord. Now the thing with a dominant chord is it's got 2 notes within that chord, the F sharp, which wants to rise up to the G. So in the D7 chord we have this state of tension, you can feel it. It's not at rest, it wants to end, it wants to go somewhere and resolve. So the C wants to fall back to the B and the F sharp wants to rise to G. So those 2 notes together want to resolve in this way. So those are dominant chords. So you've got major chords, minor chords and dominant chords which create the tension to end the chord sequence. And that's basically the way all harmony works, whether it's classical music, jazz, rock, blues. That's the main principle behind it. Now 7th chords are they're kind of cool because you can add other notes as well as the 7th to make the chord, give it a different texture. So here we have, for example, we've got 1, 3, 5, which are the basic notes of the chord, then the 7th. We can also add this note, which we call the 9th, because it's 9 steps away from the root. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So when you put those notes all together into a chord shape, you get the chord of the 9th. If you carry on going up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, you've got the 11th note there. So if you have the 7th and the 11th, you get an 11th chord. So we'd have it like this. There's one voicing, or you might call it the street life chord. Those are 11th chords. So very often you see in guitar music, you see a thing called sus4 or sus2 or add 9 or 9th, and this is confusing because a 9th chord or a sus2 chord is different from an add 9. Now I'll just run through this very quickly with you. We're going to go to the key of G. If I count up 9 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we get to the note of A. If we count from here, this G to A, it's 1, 2. Now the thing is that a suspended chord means that the normal third note of the scale, which in the key of G is B, 1, 2, 3, is suspended, and in place of that B we have the note A. So, or if it was a D chord, now this means that you've got a D chord, but in place of the third you've got the second. So it's a sus2 chord. The second note of the scale is suspended, and then it's replaced with a third to create the normal sounding D chord. You can also suspend the fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the note G. So that's suspended, so the third is not there, but the fourth is there, and when that suspension is released, it returns to the normal D chord. So you can have sus2, D, sus4, and D. Now that's different to a ninth chord or an add 9 chord, because with a ninth chord or an add 9, you've got all the notes, including the third, but you've got the added ninth as well. So in the add 9 chord, you've got the chord of G with the third and the ninth added. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, and in this chord here, you've also got the added sixth note of the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when you're reading maybe some jazz standards and you see these expressions like G6-9, you think, what the hell's that? It's simple, it's just the sixth note of the scale and the ninth note of the scale added to the basic notes. So the basic notes of G are G, B and D. Wherever you play that chord, those are the notes. They're just placed in a different order, in a different position on the fret chord, but the chord is the chord. So when we add the ninth, we can also add the sixth, it's G6-9, and we can voice that lots of different ways. Those are what's called inversions, where you reorder the notes in a particular order. So with a major chord, you can add notes from the major scale to create an embellished form of the major chord. It doesn't change the basic nature of the chord, it just makes it richer. It's just adding some more colours or some more spice. So that's a basic G chord. If you add the added ninth and the sixth, that's G6-9. If you add the seventh note, the major seventh, the seventh note of the major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, notes F sharp, and you add that as well, you've got a G major ninth, because you've got the ninth and the major seventh. Dominant chords are slightly different, because a dominant chord contains, remember I said that's the major seventh, but a dominant chord has the regular seventh, which is 1 fret or half a step lower. So we can add, for example, on top of the seventh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we can add the ninth note, which is A. We can continue counting up, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we can add the ninth, the seventh, ninth and the 13th, which forms a G13 chord. It will still want to resolve to C, just the same way as the G7 folk chord wants to resolve to C, because you have this motor. It's like a little motor inside the chord that wants to resolve. So if you're playing a blues, for example, you may want that tension there all the time, so you might have those are chords using a chord with the seventh in to create that ongoing feeling of tension. But eventually, no matter what tension you have, eventually come round and resolve back to the tonic, down to the root again. So that's a basic overview of harmony and how it works and how chords should be spelt, and I really hope that's useful. Watch the movie a few times, stop it, you can email me if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to do any one-to-one FaceTime tuition with you. Many thanks for watching.